Hello students, I am Sally Quadros Coutinho from Government College, Cape. Today we shall take up the unit 2 from cell biology and will be dealing with cell and its components. Under that we'll be taking up cell theory. What we are going to do is history of cell theory in brief and the cell theory. What exactly we are going to learn is what is the cell theory, a little of its history, and the applications of this theory. It was Robert Hooke in 1665 who was the first scientist who observed a slice of cork using a microscope. And he discovered hollow cavities, like small little cells. He coined the term cell, and he wrote it in his book, Micrographia. This was his microscope, and this is the cork that he took section of, and he saw the dead cells, like compartments or small cells. Later, Antonio van Leeuwenhoek used a single lens microscope, and he was the first person to see a living cell of bacteria from dental scratchings. Later in 1838, German botanist Matthias Jacob Schilden studied microscopic plant structures of different plant species. He observed the plant parts, and he observed that they are all composed of cells. Every plant species is made up of cell. This is what he came to a conclusion, that it is a basic unit of the plant. In 1839, Theodor Schwann, a German zoologist, applied this thesis of cells to animals and found that all animals are also made up of cells. So Matthias and Theodor, they both postulated that the cell is a basic unit of structure and function of life. This simple, basic, generalized formula was now known as cell theory, or called as cell theory. All living organisms are made up of cells. This formed the first cell theory. Later, K. Nageli showed that plant cells formed from divisions of pre-existing cells. Then, in 1855, pathologist Rudolf Virchow confirmed Nageli's principle, and he stated it in Latin that every cell is from a cell. That is, omnis cellula e cellula. So the cell theory states that all living organisms are composed of one or more cells. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. The cell is the smallest basic unit of structure and organization of life. All metabolic reactions in organisms take place in cells. So when we have pre-existing cells, they form new cells. Now, why is this cell theory used to understand how life is existing? Now, this cell theory can be applied to all living organisms because we understand the organism. But it is applicable only to true cells. Cells which have set of genes, they have the plasma membrane, they have their own metabolic machinery for life activities, which some organisms do not have. So, some organisms do not fit in the purview of the cell theory. Now let us see. Let us take the virus. We have the bacteriophage here. We see it doesn't have a plasma membrane. it doesn't have cytoplasm, and it doesn't have its own metabolic machinery. If we see minutely, it consists of DNA and it has a covering of protein. It's non-cellular, not made up of cells, no chromosomes. Outside the host, they are non-living. They reproduce only inside the host cell. So if you see the different types of viruses here, they don't have their own machinery. So we cannot say they are purely living cells. They are dependent on the host, so they are actually parasites. We also have fungus rhizopus, and we have algae vaucheria. They do not fit into this cell theory too. Their bodies contain a mass of undivided protoplasm and many nuclei scattered which lack cell organization. So the cell theory is not applicable to these organisms also. During this session, we have actually realized that it was Matthias Schilden and Theodor Schwenn who proposed the cell theory, which states that all organisms are composed of one or more cells. Cells arise from pre-existing cells. Cell is the basic unit of cell structure and organization in an organism, and all metabolic reactions in organisms take place in cells. We have some references and credits here which can be used by you, and also some web references which you can refer to. Thank you.